knowledge. God doesn't have the knowledge of being wrong. God doesn't have the knowledge of stealing. God doesn't have a knowledge of lying.
You can have the knowledge of something without having to do it.
Is not all.
You can have the knowledge of something without having to do the thing.
Not really. You don't have. You can't have the experience of doing something.
Is that really impossible? You're quite. You're a clever man. You're a clever. Yeah, what's your name? What's your name again?
They call me Pavlov.
Pavlov. How are you, my friend? So I would say to you, you're a clever man, right? If I say to you, well, do you really need to have the knowledge that? Do you really need to have experience of touching a flame in order to know that it burns you?
I need to know the knowledge of the feeling, how it burns.
No, you don't need to have that.
I will know it hurts, but I will not know exactly the way how it hurts.
Is it conceivable,
unless
Pavlov,
I get hurt?
Let me ask you a question. Is it conceivable for someone to know that fire burns without having ever been burnt?
Is it conceivable for you to know how something tastes sweet?
You go.
Is it possible? Without ever tasting anything that's sweet?
If you're talking about me personally, me with my limited parameters and so on, you could argue yes, in an ontological sense. You can argue that I have a dream of sucking a lollipop. That'll be an ontological answer. We're just talking about that, right? Or you could argue no. But both of those arguments are valid. But when we're talking about the all,
I mean, logically you can't because you never experienced.
But that's a naturalistic
understanding. Of experience.
What we've just said, right? You can have knowledge of experience without having that material experience. For example, I might have, sorry to be very explicit here, a wet dream. Okay?
No problem.
I might have, and
everybody has
many boys and and girls have wet dreams. Okay? Now it's quite a similar experience. Maybe not fully in its entirety to the sexual experience, right? Now, let's say, for example, the person has never had actual sexual intercourse, but they've had a wet dream. But they can ontologically fathom what the sexual experience
will have an orgasm.
Yeah, will entail.
Not having sex.
Right, so the same thing, there's a fallacy here in your reasoning that you have to actually materially, cosmologically go through an experience through the senses, the five senses, in order for there to be a knowledge of every, in and out of that particular transaction. That's not necessary. It doesn't follow like that. You can have a knowledge of how the experience will feel without having materially felt that thing through an ontological sensation, for example.
How can you tell what red is while being blind?
You can if you have an ontological experience. If you have a dream of red. If you have a dream of redness.
If you're blind, you will not see any colors in your
How do you know? If you have a dream, if you're a blind person, have a dream.
Are an agglomeration of the world that we see now.
Right.
A distortion of
what do you think?
Like the
you
thing
cannot see in dreams something that
I've got a great example.
Zero link to the world.
I'm going to disprove you right now. Okay.
Go ahead.
And you are going to accept it. Okay. And you are going to accept it.
Go ahead.
Yes. Because you are a man of humility and integrity.
Of course, lots of humility.
Does mathematics exist in the real world?
Sorry to interrupt. We talk about, as you just explained to your argument, as God created the concept of stealing, He created all concepts is above our comprehension and everything. So was your question before, how can God know what stealing is if you've never stole anything?
No, I covered that. I'll come to it in a second, so I don't lose my train of thought. Sorry about that. Sorry.
The question.
No. So here the point is, mathematics is entirely ontological, accept or not?
Ontological.
Ontological.
Ontological. What exactly
so it's
do you
in the
mean
mind.
by that in this specific
sense?
The
mind. It's not
mathematics is in
the
mind.
Yes.
This ties to the question I want to ask you.
Is mathematics
theoretical knowledge, right?
Theoretical. Is mathematics ontological or is it cosmological?
So cosmological, you mean by cosmological?
Cosmological, that which you perceive through the five senses.
Yes.
Yeah. So ontological in your mind.
Ontological in your mind.
Which is it?
Okay. Which is mathematics?
Yes.
Ontological or cosmological?
Yes.
Right. If I had to answer that, I would say
Isn't mathematics factual?
No, but is it conceived of in the mind or is it put under a microscope?
I will come to facts.
Do we find out about numbers through the microscope or do we know it?
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, but facts can be either ontological or cosmological. I'm asking, is mathematics, is it something in the mind or is it something that you get through the five senses under a microscope? Can you put numbers under a microscope?
it's fact. It means you don't get it.
No.
And you don't get it right.
Don't go that way.
No, I wouldn't agree with that.
Don't go that way.
I would come back to that, but that's not correct answer.
Now
Go on.
you are telling me I'm using fallacies while you use the fallacy right now.
What's it called? What? False dichotomy?
Because
What
we
are you
don't
gonna say?
know mathematics when we are born.
That's what
The
you're saying.
mathematics we know in our head is the mathematics that has been taught to us with the numbers that we see.
Yeah, no problem. Even if
our
you've been taught it,
perception.
you've been taught it. But even when you were being taught it, were you being taught it? Is mathematics found out through an investigation of science, or is it found out through mental abstraction?
I would say it
The thing, there is
reinforces
nothing,
each other.
There is nothing in
No
this
problem.
world.
But where does it start?
All right.
Where does it start? Sorry, I apologize.
It's fine.
I actually want to ask this man some genuine questions. I am genuinely.
Let's finish this thing. One thing at a time.
But this is what I'm saying. You finish your.
Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean, but I think
Nothing
like,
in this world is truly ontological because everything we know goes through our
All right.
senses.
Okay, no problem. I have a challenge for you then, Pavlov. Yeah. I have a challenge for Pavlov. I have a challenge. All right.
I think I know what the challenge will be.
No, I've got a good challenge for Pavlov. My challenge for you, Pavlov, and for every other naturalist in the world, is to prove mathematics through the scientific method. Is it conceivable?
Through the scientific
Yeah.
method.
Is it possible that you can prove mathematics through the scientific method? Yes or no?
In theory, you can. But
How?
the
Show me how.
application of theories to the real world.
Do you think it's possible?
flawed. Wait, guys.
I think that if
This is-
science itself, science destroys itself.
Yeah. No. Right. So it's impossible for
like
mathematics
quantum
to be
mechanics.
established through the
Quantum
scientific
mechanics
method.
contradicts
Basically,
many
sort of,
theories,
yeah.
scientific
Yeah.
theories
So, no,
that we have.
You're not
like
understand-
Einstein's
Pavlov, you're not getting the question.
No, I am getting
All
the
right. Do you know what the
question.
scientific method is?
Sorry?
What is the scientific method?
Scientific method.
Yeah, go on.
It's something that you prove.
What is it? What are the steps? What do you do? How do you go? How do you?
Explain the scientific method.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So you have, let's say for example, you have a hypothesis, right?
Yes.
Then you go into the laboratory in controlled settings. You run the experiment in controlled settings and so on, and then you put your conclusions in a journal.
Yeah.
Then there's peer review, falsification, after popper, and so on.
No, you miss a very crucial point.
Sorry, go ahead. I might have, yeah.
It's falsibility.
Yeah, I said that. I said falsification. I did say that.
Not only that,
I just said that.
there are more
That's
things
like
in
the
there.
most important thing.
Yeah, I did say that. I did say that.
Essentially, what you're trying to do is
Yes.
find something that you can prove false.
Yeah, all right. Fair, I said that, but you
See,
didn't
no
listen.
scientific experiment
I did.
is
It's on the camera. You can
absolutely
check it.
as quantum mechanics proves to us
Right,
many
right.
times.
Anyway,
You see,
No,
it's-
treat people with you, brother. It's like,
Falsification.
we're not going to argue about something.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Like, it's like, because it's very important.
Right,
The
let's-
difference
let's
between
come to
science
it.
and everything else is that you're actively looking for
There's
something.
interference in the battle.
Find something wrong.
Happens all the time.
I'm not making anything wrong with science. I'm just saying that.
You're not looking for something that confirms what your belief is.
Yes,
You're
I
trying
agree.
to disprove. what
No,
your-
I agree. That's Karl Popper. That's
Okay.
falsification. I said
so
that.
I'll shut the fuck up because I'm an arsehole. Me and you, I want to ask you something.
Oh, okay,
very
afterwards. Yeah, let me just finish with Pavlov. You cannot put numbers under a microscope. They cannot be smelt. They cannot be touched. They cannot be felt. You cannot go through the five senses. Numbers are ontological.
No.
They're ghosts.
And there's no difference
You
of
see
opinion.
a number
All right,
because
give
you
me one
saw a
philosopher who said this.
I'm an idiot. Can you
There's no-
define ontological?
Ontological is that which is in the mind.
I looked it
It's
up
something
on-
logical, something you
Something
can.
in this context.
The conclusion you can
Mental.
come to.
It's a mental thing.
It's a conclusion you can come to without actually having to see anything logically.
So why did you
No,
put
no.
it logically?
Yes,
no,
it
that's
is.
not what
It's
it
like
is.
David Hume's relations of ideas.
My understanding
That's ontological.
No. Here in this context, when I say ontological, I mean that which is in the mind. All right, that which you can conceive mentally, rather than through the five senses, like a dream, for example.
Yeah.
Yes.
The way I understood
Mathematics is like a
dream
dream.
is based
They're in the
on
same
what you saw
category
in
of things.
reality.
The way I understood
You need
ontological-
reality to distort it
You're
somehow
unconscious.
to the
The
dream.
drive-
Yes, but the unconscious is made of shards of the conscience. You don't have anything
Anyway,
if you never perceive that.
Mathematics is not in the real world. That's why Plato had the mode of
That's the fallacy
forms.
you're making, and I see how
There's no
many people
fallacy.
could have fallen for this.
No, by the way, no one has argued against what I'm
Right.
saying that I know of.
But this
No
ties
one has
into
argued
Yeah,
against. You're saying, I'm arguing against what you're
no, but
saying
you're
right
not.
now.
To be honest, you're.
Do I
listen,
have to have a name as a philosopher for you to take me seriously?
I'm just saying to you.
Does
Here's the
me-
challenge. You have to
does
meet the
me
challenge.
rationally argue with you
meet the
is not enough?
meet the
Is
challenge.
that not enough?
Meet the challenge. The challenge is prove mathematics through the scientific method, and you cannot do that. It's impossible because science presupposes principles which are logical in order to do science. Those are metaphysical. They don't rely on the five senses, and there's no way in which you can use the scientific method to prove the principles of science. Logical principles are metaphysical. They're a priori. They're not a posteriori. They are mental. They are abstract.
That's debatable. Once you don't
you have to prove you have to prove through naturalism.
Once you don't have any senses, no sight, no smell, no feeling.
I'll explain to you.
No, wait. I'll let you talk. Let me talk. You cannot see one as one. There's nothing. Once you have zero senses,
so a blind person,
there's absolutely nothing.
So does okay? I've got a question.
With zero senses,
I've got a okay, fine,
whatsoever.
perfect. Take all the 7 billion people on the earth out of existence, and all the animals out of existence.
That's a hell of a thing to do.
Right. Take every living thing out of existence. Yes? Does mathematics exist?
No.
No, it doesn't. Problem, thank you.
I'm not shaking your hand. This is not over yet. Don't run away.
So,
Can I add to this?
No.
Because I agree with you.
That's fine. So 2 plus 2 equals 4 depends on my existence and your existence.
Exactly.
Because this is the important part. That laugh proves to me that you follow the same logic as Hashim does. Because he never once even
2 plus 2
tried.
equals 4.
He never once. No, don't interrupt.
Is 2 plus 2 equals 4?
Don't interrupt Hashim too. Don't interrupt Hashim too. Tall Hashim. I'll call you Tall Hashim from now on. I told Hashim that I'm not certain about my existence because I'm not certain in what shape or form I truly exist beyond my perception. You perceive my existence in a different... Guys, don't interrupt for fuck's sake. Don't interrupt.
No, don't sweat.
We're finally getting somewhere. Now, Hashim refused to understand that because his agenda is to disprove what I'm saying and to ridicule it as much as possible. Because he refuses to understand that his perception is not the exact same perception that is absolute truth. I see color with my eyes because my eyes have 3 color receptors. I smell because my nose has a certain ability to perceive smell. I hear, I don't hear as well as a deer hears. I don't see as well as an eagle sees. My senses are not perfect.
You can hear in your dreams. And you can see in your dream. And your eyes are closed.
I can see in my dreams. I can hear in my dreams.
If you're blind,
I can touch in my dreams.
Speak to a blind person. Here's your homework. The homework is speak to a blind person and ask them if they've ever had dreams before where they visually see things. Right? If you think that blind people don't have dreams, that's denying the experience.
They do have dreams.
Ask them.
But they have sound in
your
dreams.
eyes, when you close your eyes like that, you still see.
They do not see shapes
how do you know that?
Dreams. No blind person will ever tell you that. How do you know they do?
I know that.
How do you know they do? How?
I've spoken to blind people before.
To blind people? You've spoken to them?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I have a question for you. So, sorry for interrupting. Now, if someone is focusing
do you want to
too
continue?
much... No, I'm okay. I just...
You're leaving.
Is there anything you want to say to me?
Don't leave just yet.
I think we're done.
I don't think we're done.
Okay, one more chance. The challenge is
one more chance for you to
use the scientific method to prove science. Use the scientific method to prove mathematics. Can you prove mathematics through the scientific method? What would you do? How would you run the experiment? You're a scientist now. Let's find out. Pavlov's lab. We're going to go to Pavlov's lab.
You're not listening.
Oh, no. We're going to go to... Okay,
as I usually say,
let's go to Pavlov's lab.
The battle between debaters, especially in Speaker's Corner, is not for the agreement of the other, it's for the soul of the viewer.
Fine.
That's what you're fighting for. You're not fighting for me to start agreeing with you. You're fighting so the people will agree with you on the other side.
These are ad hominems.
It's not an ad hominem at all, because you're not listening to what I'm telling you.
How would you do? How would you run the experiment?
As you see it right now, is ultimately shaped by your senses. While you're blind, deaf, you can't touch, you can't smell, you can't do anything, you will not have any conception of math.
How would you run the experiment in the laboratory?
Your self-awareness is based on your senses. Without senses, there is nothing.
So all the human beings, take them off the earth, 2 plus 2 does not equal 4.
No problem.
What is the 2? You need to link it to something. Keep laughing.
I would like to have a chat with you. I'll wait for the camera.
No, I can laugh too. It is funny. Because,
can I ask you my final question that I have stored for you all
Yes,
this
of
time?
course.
Right. I agree with you there with the mathematics stuff.
Yes.
Like essentially what your argument is that the mind is a fundamental component of the way reality is structured. Yes. And in a sense we have this miraculous capacity, whether you call it divine or whatever, what we'll call you, There are things that are inherent, that come from within, that science can't deal with, and that we're doing.
Yes.
Like, in a sense, what you and I are doing right now, in a sense, is playing mini God, right? We're actually...
I'm just trying to
playing with the strings of reality, in a sense. You're having an effect on me in the same way I'm having an effect on you.
Hopefully.
Now, we've had this earlier argument about whether something can come out of nothing and all that stuff, and I wanted to tie that back all the way to the earth, right? Because that's all far away, heavenly, cosmological stuff, basically. I think, philosophically speaking, it boils down to the question whether, because I feel that in Abrahamic religions and in Western philosophy and all that stuff, let's say Abrahamic philosophy, there's always this dichotomy, right? There has to be subject and object. Right. You have to split between emotions and feeling, thought and feeling. Symbolically masculine, symbolically feminine, whatever, what have you. Yeah. Do you feel that ultimately, all things considered, at the end of the day, the universe can be explained?
Yes.
Right. That's our fundamental disagreement there.
All right. But I think your open-mindedness is commendable, because as someone who's an agnostic, you've accepted and acknowledged the fact.
I'm not an agnostic.
What would you? Someone who believes in? Sorry.
Right. So to give you my perspective is, Eastern philosophy is very skeptical of words.
Right.
Very skeptical of words.
Yes.
They do not like, even though like there's been plenty of wars of Buddhists like crashing in the skulls of Hindus and vice versa. Like it's all over the place. There hasn't been a single holy war about doctrinal differences, because within Eastern philosophy it is believed that
I don't know about that, man. That's a difficult one to say.
Right.
It's about 4,000 years of history there.
Verbalized statements are never taken to be reality itself, and so I can give you a funny story, because often I'm not sure if you're like aware of a lot of stuff that's going on in the culture right now. Something that's very rampant in all over the place on universities, basically.
Why this country?
All over the traditionally West, let's say. Right? There's this idea which is pretty much rampant, which is very which has a lot of similarities between Eastern philosophy.
Yes.
It's called postmodernism.
Yes.
It's very skeptical of meta-narratives, like big cosmological stories, which I think is a big mistake. Yes. They're also very skeptical of words. Yes. What now has happened is that as soon as you can change the words, you change reality.
Yeah, grammology is...
It's not grounded in logic.
Derrida wrote a book called Grammology.
Right.
Yeah.
Derrida, Lacan, Michel Foucault.
Yeah.
I don't think they're the most sophisticated thinkers around. Like, they have their place, but do some more reading. In my estimation, for everyone that's super enthusiastic about them. Yeah. But what's funny is and where I think our fundamental disagreement is in Eastern philosophy, they never take verbalized statements to be reality itself. Yeah. And so in Abrahamic religion and Abrahamic theology and philosophy, there's more of an emphasis on the object, more of on the emphasis on the logical versus the illogical. Yes. And in a sense, I also feel that this is the reason why some people speak of a patriarchal system, in a sense, because also the rational and the thought is often connected to the symbolically masculine. Okay. Yeah. Now, a funny Eastern story to maybe shed light on where I'm coming from, in a sense, because you might have, and maybe that was the reason why you connected where I was coming from to Dawkins, because most often when people speak about Eastern philosophy, according to Abrahamic thinkers, they come off as nihilists. It's like, right, you keep speaking about the illogical nature of the universe and all this nothingness that you're speaking of. You're nihilistic. You don't believe in anything. It's like, nah, I'm not. I don't believe in anything. Like, I'm not proposing an idea as the ultimate nature of reality, because I don't feel that at the end of the day you can verbalize the truth, in a sense. I think you can come very close, which is very interesting, because we can just have a conversation endlessly. Yes. And I do think that words are important.
No, but then this will make you drop into, that discussion with Socrates and the sophists.
Right. So I think we misunderstand the sophists.
Pavlos, you know this one.
I do know this one.
What is it?
But listen, I wanted to say speak about something else.
Before you
because
speak
you keep saying about this, I'll give you another chance.
Pablos, you know, I haven't.
You keep saying I'll give you another chance.
We're in the midway through.
There is no chance.
Okay, no chance. Okay, fair enough.
There is no chance to begin with.
The point,
you're not considering what I'm telling you.
Okay, what do you want to
say? Because in theory, the conclusions of math are absolute. 1 + 1 can only equal 2. But the application of those theories to the real life is where it goes wrong. Because all we have is real life. We don't have the world of theory. We can't perceive it properly.
Okay.
1 is an imaginary number. Okay. Unless you see it as 1, as the symbol. Okay. It's imaginary.
Right.
It doesn't actually exist.
So you agree with me?
In theory, I agree with you, but in practice, in the human world, it doesn't function like that.
Okay. Well, you have engineering and all that stuff.
That distinction between
can I finish
the theory and the practice.
Right. Okay. So let me tell you the story.
Yeah.
Like it's about this Zen master and his disciple in a sense. It's like a monk. How you call it?
I just want 5 minutes with you.
Let him finish the story.
There's a pupil, right? And so they're discussing the nature of reality.
Where's this story from?
Japan.
Okay.
Within Zen Buddhism. And they're like, the Zen master is expounding on the nature of reality.
Yeah.
And they're endlessly discussing.
Yes.
And there's this big thing within Zen Buddhism that you can't articulate the truth.
Yeah.
And so they're talking about the nature of reality, but the Zen master knows we can never ever verbalize it. And so they're discussing the nature of all the things that they're surrounding them. Right? So there's this stone. And then the Zen master asks to this pupil, what is this? And the pupil obviously says, this is a stone.
Right.
Zen master says, no. What is this?
Unless I ask, I can't know.
Right, the stone.
And he says it's a stone.
Right.
He says, no, it's not a stone.
Yeah, okay.
A stone is a sound. It's a sound you're making.
Right.
This, what I'm having here in my hand right now, that's this.
Right.
What we're doing with words is overlaying it with some abstracted conceptual thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And now here's what's funny, because you might imagine that
Which I
Zen
agree with
masters
that,
expound so much on the futility of words, you might expect them to never talk anymore. Because if language if we can verbalize statements about the ultimate truth, what the fuck is the point in talking?
Yeah, okay.
Well, I think talking is fun, so that's the reason why I engage in it.
Yeah, the fun is a good way to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, sorry.
right. So the next day, they do the sort of lesson again, and it's like, right, pupil, what is this?
Yeah.
And he doesn't answer.
Yeah.
And the Zen master's happy. It's like he got the point. He's not going to say stone, but because as soon as he says stone, he doesn't do the thing that I'm holding right now that I'm trying to identify justice.
Right.
Right. Then the third day, the pupil walks by the master. Just before the lesson, and he walks away to, we'll say, take a leak or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the Zen master picks up the stone and throws it at his head.
Right.
And he's like, whoa, what the hell? What did you just do?
Yeah.
And the Zen master replies, I just threw a stone at your face. So that you understand. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know how that's funny?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
now he starts to use the word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so.
No, it's interesting. No, I take
it's a funny story. Cheers.
Thank you, man. Tell me some books I can read on Eastern tradition that you found interesting.
Please. Like, what changed my life?
Go ahead.
Like, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Okay.
Right. It's a book by an American writer. It's like a American philosophy classic. And everything that you've he goes into like the metaphysics of Aristotle and Plato and all that stuff, and he ties that to the East.
Interesting.
But he's an interesting thinker.
I'll look at it. What's that again?
Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
What's the name of the writer?
Robert Pirsig.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, man.
Do you have a recommendation for me? I'll check it out.
The Quran.
I will.
Read it from chapter 50 to 114.
With a grain of salt, though. With a big grain of salt.
I'm not here to debate you.
Yes, okay.
I'm not here.
Thank you, man. Thank you.